Music in America is a blend of cultures, beats, and styles drawn from all over the world. But for most of American history, music was classified strictly by race, white or black. 50 years ago, that started to change with remarkable social and musical innovations.
My girl, talking about my girl.
A small record company in Detroit, Michigan, developed innovative ideas for music and marketing. These innovations brought cultural change, blurred the line between white and black music, and profoundly impacted race relations in American society. Music by African Americans is an essential part of our nation's history. From spirituals sung by slaves, to Scott Joplin's ragtime compositions, to musical works by jazz greats such as Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie. However, the music industry remained segregated and discriminatory in the middle of the 20th century.
Black artists can make a record. It's a rhythm and blues record. It's on the rhythm and blues charts, what have you. A white artist can make that same record, almost with the same arrangement, the same song. And right away, it's a pop record then.
Elvis Presley, you ain't nothing but a hound dog.
Hound Dog was a smash hit for Elvis Presley, but the song had been recorded 3 years earlier by African-American artist Big Mama Thornton.
You ain't nothing but a hound.
While the song earned Elvis Presley millions of dollars, Big Mama Thornton was paid just $500 in her lifetime for the original recording. This was the segregated music business that Berry Gordy entered. Berry Gordy Jr. was born in Detroit in 1929. Gordy had a love for jazz and the blues and started a career as a songwriter. But to make ends meet, he first took a job in Detroit's Lincoln Mercury assembly plant. While on the assembly line, Gordy learned about production techniques that he would later use in building his innovative record company. But after getting only $3.17 in royalties for one of his songs, Gordy decided to innovate by creating the first black-owned company to control several parts of the music business: composing, recording, and publishing.
I wanted something that would reflect my love for Detroit. So I realized that Detroit was called the Motor City. I decided to call it Motown at first. Then I said, well, that's a little too long, so Motown.
One of Gordy's innovations was to market music to a mass audience, bridging racial divides.
On the very first day of Motown, when Berry Gordy decided he was going to start Motown, he said to us, we are not going to make black music. We're going to make music for everybody.
It had never been done before, and most people said, well, if it has never been done before, then that's a good reason maybe you should not do it. I said, no, that's a good reason I should do it.
It was a philosophy that Berry had that Motown had to be different to reach out to everybody. He had no idea how big that company was going to be, but the philosophy worked.
Motown's first big hit was Shop Around by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, but the group's faces were nowhere to be seen on the album cover.
A number of the early albums produced by Motown, there were no images of the artists, and that was done to get people to first just love the music, and then, you know, when you realize it's a black artist that was singing it, then you said, oh wow, so what? Music is what's important.
Before Motown, black artists were often on their own, personally and professionally. Motown innovated by creating a talent management agency. Artists were trained in how to present themselves, on stage and off.
The ladies, they taught the Supremes how to speak, how to walk. The Motown was innovators in all of that because no other record company took our time to try to train their artists to present themselves to the world the way Motown did.
In 1962, Motown was the first record label to place its top artists on a bus tour called the Motown Revue. It was during this tour that Motown encountered the violence that was spreading throughout the Deep South.
There was an occasion when we got on the bus and I heard some pow, 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 pow explosions going off. 3 bullets were dug out of the marquee of the bus. We had been shot at.
The bus tour rolled on, and the hit songs continued to roll out, featuring a distinctive and innovative sound, later called the Motown sound.
What Motown did was brought a production style in music that gave equal play to the bottom end, meaning that they bumped up the bass, they bumped up the drums, and they really perfected that sound in the studio. Those sorts of innovations in the studio are really the big lasting legacy.
As the Motown sound became more popular, a breakthrough came in 1963 when the Beatles recorded 3 Motown songs on one of their albums, helping Motown's music cross over to white audiences. But it was on television where Motown and its artists created the biggest social impact. The early years of television were highly segregated, but Motown innovated by insisting its artists perform on TV in an integrated setting. At televised concerts featuring Motown performers, blacks and whites danced side by side in the audience or on stage.
To see an African American in a positive way was a really important thing, because here you have these young ladies from Detroit who were presented in a positive way. And so the Supremes inspired not just African Americans, they inspired everyone.
As President Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Motown provided the soundtrack as America's black citizens finally gained equal rights under the law.
And we shall overcome.
Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
This was all happening at a time when the world was going crazy. You know, we had prejudice problems, we had racial problems. I mean, the world was in a crazy place. But this music was bringing people together.
Love, hope, and happiness were the foundations of the early Motown sound. But that changed as the 60s came to a close and the Vietnam War raged on.
A retreat from the United States from Vietnam would be a communist victory of massive proportions and would lead to World War II.
Motown's song War was adopted by the anti-war movement, but the company's golden age was coming to an end. In the 1970s, other record companies signed top Motown artists, and the company abandoned its Detroit headquarters for Los Angeles. Motown was sold in 1988 to Music Corporation of America. The record label still exists today as part of NBC Universal, far from its independent roots. Today, Motown classics are part of America's musical heritage, recalling a time of social change, and even used as political anthems.
The next President of the United States should be, and with your help, will be Senator Barack Obama.
You know, that we have our first African American president is due, in part, even if that part is basically almost invisible, is due in part to Motown, to an acceptance of black culture via radio, via dance, via art.
I think that Motown was just one of many things, I would say, that helped contribute to really bringing the races together.
Berry Gordy did not anticipate the impact his company and its music would ultimately have on America. But in the 50 years that have passed, Motown has continued to influence American culture. America has changed in many ways. Motown and its innovations, from style to marketing to music, combined with the social forces of the 1960s to change people's attitudes. Motown's innovations have had a lasting impact on the America we live in today.
Nothing like Motown had ever happened prior to Motown. Nothing like that has ever happened since. I doubt that it will. So Motown will be remembered as a once-in-a-lifetime musical event that is the most unique musical experience in the history of music.
Maybe you